Hi guys, I'm Mike and this is F1 Fanatics. Welcome back to a special video today, a video on a topic that no one on F1 YouTube has done before. It definitely is a completely original idea. There are certainly not any kind of well-known YouTubers in the community who've looked at liveries and kind of done livery designs or whatever. It definitely doesn't happen. Okay, I'm completely lying with that. Obviously, in recent weeks, this has been quite a popular one. The likes of Tommo F1, Apex F1, have done livery redesigns. Obviously, Tommy from What the F1 started some YouTubing, creating some liveries as well. So, and MotoMeerkat did his top 20 liveries. There's been quite a lot of livery videos out there, but this is, F1 Fanatics. It's a fan channel, and fan of the channel, Gianni from the Netherlands, messaged, and he was like, he started asking me what were kind of my favourite liveries of all time, and then was like, maybe we should do a video where he would give me his top 10, and I obviously have my top 10. And I run you guys through our kind of top 10 liveries, because it's always fun to debate and we all have our opinions and we all have kind of different liveries, and I'm sure there are going to be a few, because these are top 10 liveries of all time that people will be going, no, how can you miss out that livery, or how the hell does that livery make your top 10? But here we go. We're going to go out it, and obviously I'll leave a link in the description to like I said, to those other liveries, because it's always fun in this time. We don't have much time to feel before racing is kind of coming in, but yes, it'll be fantastic. Just before we jump into our top 10 liveries though, we're going to start off with Gianni's. I just want to say thank you so much, guys, for getting us to 900 subscribers. I know Mark, I know Ash and Stephen, as well as me. We're incredibly grateful for all the people who subscribe to the channel and support the channel. We really kind of do appreciate our support. We're trying to push to get 1,000 before lights out in Austria. That would be absolutely amazing, and to do it within a year of us starting the channel. But yes, thank you so much. We really do appreciate all the support you got. But without further ado, enough of seeing my face on screen. We're going to see some great looking F1 cars and go through the top 10 of myself and Gianni as well. So coming in at P10 for Gianni is the 2009 Braun. And I think this will be a very popular addition to a lot of people on the list. For some reason, the really simplistic livery of the Braun, I saw it in person at the Autosport International show this year, and it just is such a simply beautiful car. But it's so basic. It's just basically white with a fluorescent yellow stream on it. Obviously, I think maybe there's an attachment to the livery as well, because it's a fairy tale year, and obviously with Jenson Button and Braun winning the title that year, I think it holds a special place in a lot of people's heart. But there's just something so beautiful about the simplistic of this livery, and definitely worthy of being in Gianni's top 10 list. Bouncing over to my 10th, and I think this will probably surprise people, not that it's on the list, but that it is 10th on the list, and that is the 1978 Lotus. I mean, you could have many renditions of this, especially with a few of these ones on the list. There's like a common theme that it was a trend of liveries throughout the year, but the classic black and gold Lotus livery. The livery, it was made famous by Lotus. Obviously, Haas tried their rendition of it in the 2019 season, and that's been our most recent edition of it on the F1 season. But yeah, there isn't much to say about it. And 1978, I guess just in the prime of Lotus years is why I went for that one. Mario Andretti's title-winning car. Yeah, just another absolutely beautiful car to look at. Moving over to P9 with Gianni's list, and a very popular one. It is the 1991 Jordan, the kind of classic 7-Up livery. And across this era, you know, in the late 80s and early 90s, there were these loads of liveries that kind of just had block colours that, you know, almost you feel like you were colouring in with a crayon. But for some reason, especially with the sponsored, I mean, this is actually a surprise because it wasn't a cigarette brand on the side of a car, which for the majority of the time was on F1 cars and kind of stood out with great liveries. But yeah, just these block colours of the blue and the green, it just works so well. And obviously iconic because Michael Schumacher is renowned, one of his first cars in that first qualifying outing he had at Spa and getting it into P7. But other than that, it's still just a great livery. What a brilliant livery that is on the list. Moving on to P9 for me, and the Jaguar 2004. And so it's no surprise if you follow the F1 Fanatics channel that Racing Green makes an appearance on this list because, oh, it's a livery that just, green looks so good on a race car. And I'm hoping so badly that with Aston Martin coming back in, well, obviously Racing Point being rebranded as Aston Martin for the 2021 season, I really hope that we see Racing Green back on the racetrack. But yeah, this Jaguar 2004, it was such a deep and metallic green. I loved it, absolutely loved it. I think I had like a dinky car as a kid. Maybe someone in the comments will be able to remind me. I'm pretty sure McDonald's did like one of their Happy Meals. This is me going back as a kid. But I'm pretty sure you could collect F1 cars, and I'm pretty sure I had the Jaguar one of this, and I was like, yes, what a car it is. I'm not sure what year it was of that, but again, this is one where Jaguar's inclusion in F1, it was variations of this design. But yeah, what a beautiful livery the Jaguar was. I'm saying beautiful a lot. I'm just kind of just admiring the artwork on F1 cars. I will try to refrain from using beautiful as much in this video. But 8 on Gianni's list is the Toyota, and I know this is a hugely popular livery on the list because, again, very simplistic, but just the way it's branded, it's perfectly for Toyota's colours. You look at it and you instantly, it's a recognisable livery. Hasn't got a year for the Toyota, but again, it's one of those that it just pretty much stayed the same. Great livery on this one. It was, truly, I always kind of associate with this Toyota and that car. Obviously, after being ousted for Renault, for Giancarlo Fisichella, another Italian. But yeah, really great livery, the Toyota. Moving on to my 8th, and that is the Jordan of 1998. And how can the Benson & Hedges yellow and black Jordan not make an appearance on this list? It was just iconic, and you know, it made a lot of people fall in love. The 1998 one, I always go with it because I remember Damon Hill's last Grand Prix victory, obviously at Spa, with it was just, you could pick whatever variations. The nose, they were a bit of the just cool kids of F1. I realise by saying cool kids, it makes me sound incredibly uncool on this list. But yeah, what a livery this Jordan one. It just, without seeing yellow on a car, I know you could probably say Renault there, but when I see yellow on a race car, I immediately think to Jordan, and that's the power of what this livery did and how well they executed it. Moving on to P7 on the Gianni's list, and it's the 1996 winning with the Rothmans livery, and I don't really know much to say about this other than it just really works, and it's another example of cigarette branding on an F1 car. Obviously, smoking is bad, and for health problems and as an addiction, it is not great. But as a sponsor on an F1 car, geez, it just kind of incorporated so well, and this Rothman Williams is another example. Obviously, Damon Hill's title-winning car in 1996, but yes, another worthy addition to this list. My 7th place is going to be a surprise because I've got a couple of old cars on here and very heavily in favour of the Lotus, and that is the Lotus 33, the title winning car of Jim Clark in 1965. And just the green with that yellow stripe, beautiful. Sorry, I've done it again, I've used beautiful, but this is a beautiful car. Like, how can you not love this Lotus? It looks good in paintings that are done of it, it looked good in pictures at the time. It just, and again, it's racing green. How can you not love racing green on a car? It was just brilliant, and a brilliant driver drove the car, and it's always worthy remembering Jim Clark at a time like this. Just, yeah, wow, that's iconic. I always view this livery when I think of Jim Clark and think of people talking about Jim Clark as well. So yeah, I think if a livery can do that and iconically match a car to a driver as well, I think that's bonus points for a livery in there. But moving on to 6th, and this may shock a few people for being so high, and I know it's controversial. You either love it or you hate it, but it is the Lotus livery of 2013. Obviously, Lotus came back into F1 with variations of this black and gold livery. I think probably my favourite of it was maybe the 2012 edition of it, but that probably is the Kimi Raikkonen returning into F1 factor playing an influence there. But I quite like it as well. It wouldn't make my top 10 list, but I do like it as a livery. But I know some people think it's just ugly, because I think maybe even Tommo had it as like an ugly livery because there's too much going on, and I completely get that. But at the same time, there's something about it I just like. And I don't know. I think with Gianni, it's you got to have the black and gold livery on there, and I think it's his favourite out of the modern liveries that have been in the past decade. But moving on to P6 for me, and that is the 1992 Williams. Now, I spoke about it with the 1991 Jordan. Blocked colours, you had the Canon livery on here with the Williams, the blue and yellow. It's kind of transferred, and I think in the early 90s they absolutely nailed this livery. And yeah, again, it's one I've seen in person, and it just looks brilliant. And the 1992 car was a brilliant car as well. Really technologically advanced, one of probably the most technological advanced F1 cars to race at the time, without things being banned, which it caused things to be banned with everything that was on that car. But yeah, it just looks good, and it's iconic. When I think Williams, I think of this blue and yellow branding. That is the immediate kind of livery that comes to mind when I think Williams. So a superb addition to list. I just love it. Really good livery. 5th, the Spica of 2007. Now, there's a couple of orange based liveries on this list. Now, I said Gianni is Dutch, so I'm not surprised that orange is a colour that he's a fan of on a racing car, because, well, we all know that the Dutch are loud and proud about the colour orange. Obviously, the Orange Army supporting Max Verstappen in the modern sport, and this Spica with orange and white, although the F1 team wasn't successful at all, this was a great livery. I think it's an underdog livery in terms of there, but like I said, not surprised with that orange in there, Gianni, that this obviously is high up in your top 10 list. Matching him at number 5 for me, another old livery and another Lotus, and it is the Lotus Gold Leaf 1970 livery, and I just love the red, white and gold on here. Again, Gold Leaf, I think they were, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments on this one, but I'm pretty sure they were the early benchmark for cigarette sponsors coming into Formula 1. And this is a brilliant livery. Hands down, this is a really underrated livery in my opinion, because I think people kind of forget about it with what comes and in recent times with liveries. This is just a really great looking F1 car. and you know, the image you can see there with the early renditions of rear wings and front wings as well. Everything about this looks a really great race car, and yeah, I absolutely love this Lotus livery. I realise we are in the top 5, well, 5 to 10. I've had 3 Lotuses in there. What can I say? Lotuses have had some great liveries in F1 over the years. They definitely get massive marks for iconic and great liveries. Now we're kind of getting to the business end of things. So 4th on the list for Gianni is the 2000 Arrows, and specifically said the kind of Jos Verstappen one. I mean, they were both driven by the teammates at the time, but yeah, with the old orange mobile phone brand, obviously it's evolved into EE nowadays, but the orange and black livery, it did look good. I think this is a great addition, and like I said, Gianni being from the Netherlands, it's no surprise that orange featured on a car is high up, but yeah, I think this is a pretty good addition to a top 10 list. With number 4, McLaren 2008, that silver and kind of fluorescent red Vodafone livery. This is just a great livery. There isn't much to. I've gone 2008 because I obviously think of Lewis Hamilton winning his World Drivers title in this livery. Obviously, it was the most successful year for the Vodafone McLaren liveries era cars. But yeah, just wow, what a... It's iconic, and I think a lot of people who were born in the noughties or properly started following F1 in there with coming in with Lewis Hamilton, this is a livery that kind of really is, yes, people strongly attached to, and I strongly attach Lewis Hamilton's McLaren days to this livery, and yeah, it just absolutely was a beautiful livery, and chrome on an F1 car just looks so good, and they executed it so well. Mercedes over the years have gone in and out. Some have been great, some have been there. McLaren absolutely nailed this livery for me. Now the top 3, and Gianni has gone for the Lotus 1985. So essentially one of the black and gold liveries, more probably thinking this one because you immediately think of the 1985 Portugal first Senna win when you think about this livery. But I said it all before when I spoke about it coming in at P10 for me. The black and gold livery, it just is a really great livery, and it's iconic. It probably is. You know, obviously I've put 2 other Lotus liveries ahead of it, but the black and gold one is the most iconic livery, that is for sure, and worthy, I think, of being in the top 3. A good pick from Gianni there. My 3 is the Jordan 91 one. Obviously, it was on the list on Gianni's list, coming in at P9, so it's quite funny actually, and it shows how opinions change of liveries or differ from person to person, because I put the black and gold livery as 10 and it makes Gianni's top 3, and he put the 1991 Jordan livery as 9th, and it makes my top 3. It just works as a block colour, and I just think it was one of those... Jordan announced themselves in F1 with this livery, and they almost immediately drew support, I think, by having a car. Maybe that's me looking in hindsight. Obviously, I was born in 1993, so I have no idea what people were actually thinking in 1991 in terms of attachment to Jordan, but it's certainly one that's kind of stood the test of time, and a lot of people look back on it favourably, and it's a very popular livery. Now, top 2, I'm going to do together here. Me and Gianni have both gone for the McLaren West liveries. He's gone for 1997, I went 1998. Again, I tend to attach my liveries to a driver championship of some sort. So obviously 1998 was Mika Häkkinen's first championship. But Gianni went for the 1997 version of the livery. Again, it was this kind of block period that you had that McLaren West sponsorship. And it just looks good. And I know a lot of people like the late 80s McLaren livery, and I do like it, and that's iconic with Senna. It certainly is. But as a livery, I just think that the McLaren West sponsorship is just a much better livery, and it just, something about it looked cool for me. And again, I realise by saying that I sound the uncoolest thing out there on a front, but yeah, it just looked a really good race car, and I really liked it. Its rendition later on in like 05 when you had Kimi and Juan Pablo Montoya's names on the side of the cars. I thought that was a really nice touch, obviously when they had to remove the West style of it. But yeah, it's a great looking race car. So number one, and they are different, but they both came from the same factory team, which is the Enstone team. So number one on Gianni's list, it's what you've all been waiting for, to rip us to shreds, to say, why is this your number one and not something else? Michael Schumacher is Gianni's favourite driver, and his second champion, and probably his first dominant championship, was the 1995 season. And this Benetton with the light blue and the white, Benetton over the years had like lots of block colours and bold liveries, but it just works. This is probably the most simple, actually, of their liveries. But that light blue, it's just really nice on a race car, and yeah, it looks really nice. Obviously, if Michael Schumacher had another one with Ferrari, this certainly would have been a car I think you would have associated with Schumacher's name. I can understand it being a kind of attachment with Michael Schumacher, and it's blues. It's a really nice colour, and it is a great livery. I'm not sure it would be too many people's number one. It certainly might make a few top 10 lists, but it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on that one in the comments below. And mine will be no surprise which is top one. If you looked at what I was wearing in the start of this video, you probably were going to guess that, as it hasn't been mentioned today, where it was going to be on the list. And that is the Renault. I'm going to go with the R26, the 2006 championship winning car with Fernando Alonso. I love this livery. Don't know why. The blue and the yellow just work so well. I like the mild 7 sponsorship, the Telefonica sponsorship as well. It just is an absolutely brilliant livery, and people know Fernando Alonso is my favourite driver, and this is what got me into Formula 1. Yes, I know all the kind of things that kind of go around Fernando Alonso, but the Renault years were certainly a really good patch, and I think just this early 2000s, all these kind of Renault liveries with the blue and yellow trim, it just looks good, and it's iconic to me. Probably because of the no success coming afterwards, well, not no success, but no success in World Championships. This is the best of Fernando Alonso in Formula 1, and so that's what I always associate this. I always associate him, seeing him in those blue and yellow overalls. Great overalls as well, actually, that match this car. I really did like those as well. But yes, the Renault R26, number one on my list. And that, guys, is the top 10. It was really fantastic, actually, to compare liveries with Gianni. And, you know, he just wanted, he thought it might be an interesting idea to share. And obviously, you know, like I said, we're a fan channel, and it's great interacting. And it's nice putting those different liveries out there and just seeing, you know, two F1 fans, the difference in what, you know, there were a couple that were similar. Only one car on the list, you know, that late 90s, early 2000s era McLaren livery that, you know, was in the same position on the list. Everything else was in a different position, and only, I think, 2 other cars or renditions of a livery were matched on it as well. And you just, it always creates a great discussions, I think, liveries. And yes, like I said, totally not an original idea. Liveries might have been overdone by this stage, but it was fun to kind of share your opinions. Hopefully you've liked this video. Again, with me waffling, I've probably dragged it on too long, so if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and thank you again for getting us to 900 subscribers. 1k, here we come. Thank you for watching, guys. So for now, you F1 fans, keep keep racing.